Sydney. Did you miss me?
Wow, October was a very exciting month for Scream 7 news, ladies and gentlemen. Let's recap some of it in today's big ol' nasty video. Getting into some Ghostface action, we had some really big updates just from this past weekend that we gotta break down. Getting into the meat and potatoes of this update, McKenna Grace is once again getting spotlighted for this film in a new article from Collider. While praising her co-star Neve Campbell and reminiscing on the sweet set pieces of the original Scream films, Grace also brings up how much screaming was done by her character in the new flick. She says, "I did lose my voice and that was a first. It was so cool. I lost my voice from how much yelling and screaming are involved for those types of films. But yeah, I lost my voice, and then the next day I had an audition for the biggest musical ever, and I was like, you're joking, of course." Now, my first immediate thought there was, oh, she's probably talking about how she's gonna do a bunch of screaming as she runs away from Ghostface. But realistically, is that a lot of screaming? It's like a little bit of screaming and then a whole lot of dying, which to my knowledge, I think you're silent when that happens. I feel like this interview is one big elaborate ruse. Put on your tinfoil hats, folks. Maybe she's screaming because her evil plan was foiled by Mrs. Sidney Prescott.
And it would have been mine if it hadn't been for those meddling kids.
I am so serious when I say McKenna Grace is my #1 prime suspect when it comes to figuring out who Ghostface is in the new movie. She's easily the most recognizable newcomer to the franchise, which is a sure sign of some Ghostface casting. They can't just cast anybody as a Ghostface killer. It's gotta be somebody who's not only a competent actor, but someone who can play both sides of the coin. Someone who's hidden in plain sight for most of the movie, only to reveal their true intentions during the third act. McKenna is perfect for that based on her filmography. She's played heroes before in the Conjuring and Ghostbusters films, while also getting a little evil in Dark Seed and The Handmaid's Tale. I would be shocked if she's not Ghostface in this film. Maybe her and Anna Camp, they got like this blonde thing going on, maybe like a mother-daughter situation. Not to go on too big of a side tangent here, but I think this might be a cool reveal too, because it sort of mirrors the focal relationship of Scream 7, which is between Sidney Prescott and her daughter Tatum. So to have your Ghostfaces have that same relationship but evil is interesting. Duality, and I'm not talking about the Slipknot song. Diving into the rumor mill here too, our third-party source that we love talking about on this page, Mr. Jude Jarjora, has recently tweeted out a few Scream 7 goodies. He praises Sydney's performance and also says that she at one point tears a birdhouse out of the ground and smashes Ghostface with it. That sounds a little silly, but I'm here for it. The most interesting Sydney tidbit, however, just came today, with Jude saying Kevin cracked the code with Scream 7. There's an actual reason why Sydney's targeted, and it makes total sense. She's not back just because they had to bring her back. She's back because there's a why. It opens the door for her to lead many more after this. Sydney is the motive. You may disagree with this, but the majority of people are certainly going into this film thinking to themselves, how many more Ghostfaces are gonna come after Sidney Prescott? Isn't this getting a little redundant? The thing about Scream, however, is that you can truly make anything work if you get creative enough. There are so many elements that make this franchise what it is. You can pull from all these different places and make the craziest story work with the right execution. Scream 7 can completely subvert that criticism by making Ghostface's motive this time around something as simple as, I want to be the one to kill the legendary Sidney Prescott. Maybe that's why McKenna Grace is screaming so much. She's throwing a fit. "Mom, I want to be the one to do it," she says as Anna Camp goes in for the first stab. Sidney Prescott deflects it, and that's how she defeats both of them. I don't know why she learned karate in between movies, but don't worry about it. Okay, obviously that's just speculation, but this motive totally rocks and could be something really fresh. Die-hard Scream fans are gonna come to this movie and love it no matter what it is, but general audience members, if they're going to be impressed by a new Scream film, it needs to hit on the franchise tropes that they did so well before in the past and need to continue doing if they're going to continue making a bunch of crazy sequels like this. One of those things that the original Scream did so well was getting inside the head of its audience member. It was taking those criticisms that people had of all the slasher movies that were being made at the time that were just getting old, and it twists those things to do something totally new. So why can't Scream 7 do that but with its own franchise this time around? I think a motive like this could do exactly what Jude is saying here. It would give Sidney a reason to come back, and maybe for many more movies to come. To Ghostface, Sidney Prescott is the white whale, the golden goose. If you kill Sidney Prescott, if you're the Ghostface to do that, oh my god, you'll be in the record books forever. This would totally win me over to the film. I want to see this happen so bad. This works for something like Scream, that is a franchise with endless possibilities. You have that meta element, you have this slasher element, fun characters that come back with each film. It lends itself to a new movie that can totally revolutionize what came before, be a deep thinking popcorn movie, or it could be total trash if you just focus on a single element and not all of the good things that make this franchise so great. Don't do what I Know What You Did Last Summer 2025 did and just rely on the campy fun. You also need a good story, good kills, good reveals, all that fun stuff. That all starts with how creative you get with your why. The Ghostfaces flavor each movie differently and are one of the big reasons why a Scream film either hits or misses. Can they deliver a good motive for our Ghostfaces this time around, no matter what it is, or will they just recycle something from the past? Again, we'll find out on February 27th of next year, baby.
Yeah, you're gonna love this one. It's a Scream, baby. Hold on a sec. I'll be right back.
The oldest Scream franchise theory is that Stu Macher, one of the original Ghostfaces, is still alive out there somewhere, plotting his revenge against Sidney. Matthew Lillard, the actor behind the goofy sidekick character, has even popped up in the franchise many times throughout the years, despite his apparent death at the end of the original. He can be seen in the background of this shot in Scream 2, and even plays the flamethrower-wielding metallic Ghostface in the Stab requel from the 2022 flick. Now, he's a confirmed cast member for Scream 7. So what's going on here? Well, many fans out there, including myself, think it wouldn't make a whole lot of sense if Stu was still alive somehow. He very clearly died in the original after suffering many stab wounds, which he would have bled out from, and then took a 60+ pound CRT television straight to the noggin. This also seemingly electrocuted him. Dude is deader than a doornail. But the thing about horror sequels is that sometimes we like to rewrite the past in order to tell new stories in the present. In fact, the recent revival of the Halloween franchise just did something very similar to this. With Scream being a meta horror franchise that comments on other elements of the current state of the genre, I think the 7th installment may be riffing on that idea that was very present in films like Halloween 2018 and especially Halloween Kills. It may even be critiquing a specific element from its slasher competitor here by bringing back one of its previous killers. So in today's video, let's talk about my new favorite Stu is alive theory and how the Scream franchise could be poking some meta fun at David Gordon Green's recent run of Halloween flicks. Now, let's talk a little bit about it. Just to recap some minor Scream 7 updates from this past week, director Kevin Williamson posted the logo to the film on his Instagram with the caption, "'Tis the season." I think this could be an indicator that the first trailer for Scream 7 is on the way. Fingers crossed, baby. We're nearing that window of when a first trailer could drop, so Scream fans should keep their eyes peeled. One safe bet that I've been talking about a lot in these videos is that I think we will definitely be seeing the Scream 7 trailer before The Running Man, which is Paramount's next horror adjacent release. So if you for sure want to see the Scream 7 trailer first and it doesn't come out before November 14th, buy some tickets for The Running Man now, which just had its final trailer release today. This isn't like a sponsorship or anything like that. I just genuinely think we're gonna see the Scream 7 trailer in front of that film. Maybe that's the first place we'll see it too. There's been a few rumors flying around, but nothing super juicy. I've already covered a big update regarding Ghostface having a particular reason to be targeting Sidney Prescott this time around in my last Scream video. I hope that one is true. It's a pretty cool little theory. Check it out in case you missed it. The new rumor that's fueling today's theory, however, revolves around this gentleman right here, an actor who's playing the escaped mental patient in Scream 7, allegedly. Take all of this with a grain of salt, ladies and gentlemen, and put on your tinfoil hats. The full scope of this rumor is that a mental patient is going to break out of a psychiatric hospital. Think Smith's Grove from Halloween. All of these efforts just to pursue Sidney Prescott and potentially Gale Weathers. Eventually, Gale runs the guy over thinking he might be Ghostface or Stu Macher. Now, this whole rumor sounds a lot like Halloween Kills, specifically that one subplot involving the other escaped mental patient that isn't super violent and doesn't wear a mask that scares children and doesn't stab people in the face. We're talking about Mr. Tivoli here, whose worst crime is he doesn't really like untied shoes. He's chased all the way up to a very high floor of Haddonfield Memorial Hospital in the second film from Mr. David Gordon Green, and is so terrified by the Evil Dies Tonight mob that he jumps out of a window to his death. It is revealed only then that he is not in fact Michael Myers, and this mob has killed a man. Now, while I am certainly in the minority here of people who loved this subplot, many Halloween fans did not. They thought it was way too complex for the simple slasher movie that they were hoping for from this sequel. Some claim the Evil Dies Tonight chant got annoying after a while and are even speculating that it will be riffed on in the upcoming Scary Movie sequel. Again, in the minority here, It didn't really bug me at all. It was something that I only heard about after the movie came out, and I was pretty shocked by, if I'm being honest. I almost liked Halloween Kills more than Halloween 2018 upon its release. For some fans, however, it's left a major blemish on the franchise. So it begs the question, with Scream 7 being this return to form with its approach, will it go back to that meta commentary of the original, which, mind you, also riffed on the original Halloween?
Now you're no longer a virgin. Now you gotta die. Those are the rules.
Could Scream 7, basically being in the requel run of this series, also riff on the requel run of the Halloween franchise? Going back to Mr. Craig Dane here, he kind of looks a bit like Matthew Lillard. Maybe Sydney and Gale mistake him for Stu Macher, believing the rumors from in-universe true crime fans that preach that Stu Macher is still out there alive somewhere. Now, this could all be set up for Stu Macher's return, like I know so many of you want so badly, but I think this may just be one major red herring to distract you from what's really going on here. Sydney and Gale could be going after a Stu Macher who they think is miraculously still alive, when really there's a new set of ghost faces coming after them, playing into their past trauma. Using that element of trauma from past Ghostface encounters could be an excellent way of keeping Gale and Sydney off the scent of the real killers. That kind of PTSD can cloud any sort of logical thought and could keep the main characters as well as the audience on the wrong path the entire movie, just in time for a shocking reveal during the third act. Or Stu Macher is actually alive and he shoots lightning bolts out of his fingers now. You know, one theory or the other. Seriously though, I really dig this theory because it brings back the very strong meta commentary of the original trilogy, which has kind of started to fade in the most recent movies. It's also playing into a very popular fan theory in unexpected ways. When it comes to good storytelling, you don't want to do exactly what the fans are going to expect, especially in sequels like this. We have been talking about an older Stu returning by taking off his mask in front of Sydney for literal decades now. I'd argue that it's not a visual that would really stun longtime fans for that simple reason alone. You have to find ways to play into expectations while also subverting them. Make the audience think one thing to only come to a different logical conclusion. I will say, however, if Stu Macher is revealed to be alive in Scream 7, I don't think I can hate it anymore. I recently lost a very close friend, one who was called the conductor of the Stu train. He would have loved to have seen a Stu Macher reveal in one of these films, and I honestly might tear up a little bit instead of being totally flustered, like how I would have been in the past. It's one of those things I simply can't be against anymore because I know how much Steven would have loved it. Despite that bias I very much so have, I think it could have some negative impacts on this franchise moving forward, where instead of having a murder mystery just in general, we just keep bringing back characters from the past for nostalgia reasons. Like for a moment here, let's entertain this possibility. Stu Macher comes back in Scream 7, and this movie makes $1 bajillion. Why would the studio go back to the old format when this new format is making money? They'll make a Scream 8 where Jill comes back, and then that's the franchise moving forward. This franchise would be rendered one big nostalgia machine at this point, where they're not trying anything new, they're just bringing back killers from the past that people liked until they run out of them, and then the series is over. That's my absolute biggest worry with Stu coming back, is that this wouldn't even be the same franchise. It would be completely unrecognizable from where it started, and I don't know if that's what I really want from this series. There are some things that I think should stay consistent with Scream while also trying out some new things in new sequels, of course. One of those consistent things, though, is we need a murder mystery. We can't just be bringing back people from the past who we enjoyed just because they were awesome back then. Scream 4 is a spitting example of trying out something new, and it totally works. I would rather be getting new Scream 4s opposed to repeating stuff from the past that totally worked. But like I said, I am totally biased when it comes to Scream 7 at this point. Basically, whatever this thing is going to be, I think I'm really gonna like it. So what do you guys think is happening here in Scream 7? Is this mental patient some sort of reference to Halloween Kills? Or has Stu Macher been alive in the shadows, masterminding every single Ghostface attack in all of the sequels so that now he can get his revenge on Sidney Prescott?
Have an aneurysm, why don't you?
I don't know, let me know down in the comments below.
His mom is Leslie Macher, Stu Macher's sister.
Who's Stu Macher? Oh my god.
He's Billy Loomis's accomplice.
A very popular Scream 7 theory is that Stu Macher's sister Leslie is going to be our Ghostface this time around. She's a character we only just found out about in Scream 2022, whose son Vince was the first to die. With her son now being dead and also being related to a previous killer, you can see how she'd be an obvious choice. Many fans have pushed back on the idea, however, because it feels a little too reminiscent of what we've already gotten in this this franchise from previous reveals. You can argue that it's basically the same thing as Nancy Loomis, Billy's mother, in Scream 2, and also very similar to the reveal in Scream 6, where it was literally the family of the previous killer. Do we really need another family-oriented motive in the Scream franchise? Is there still something new to say there? Many fans, including myself, don't want to see Scream become this repetitive series that ends up eating its own tail, but there is undoubtedly some sort of familial connection stemming to the original flick here once again. Scream 7 sees the return of Matthew Lillard, Scott Foley, and David Arquette, all three who play characters that have some sort of connection to Maureen Prescott's murder, the thing that started this all in the first place. With references already being made to Scream 2022, also with the inclusion of the Meeks Martin twins here in the cast, as well as the character of Mark Evans, originally being played by Mark Kincaid actor Patrick Dempsey, I think the killer could certainly stem from that throwaway line in the fifth film that introduced us to more Macher family members. In today's video, let's talk about a brand new theory that's been thrown my way regarding Stu Macher's sister, and how it could show us a whole new side to the character 30 years later. Now let's talk a little bit about it. So I want to thank Snoopy over on Twitter for pointing this theory out to me, which comes from NoRip256 over on Reddit. Like I said earlier, I think it's a really interesting direction to take the whole Stu sister is the killer thing, so let's break it down. The theory starts off with, in the film, it's revealed that Stu was adopted, and his real name, the name he was born with, isn't revealed until well into Act 2. The twist connects directly to a new setting, the psychiatric hospital where both Gail and Sydney conduct a deep investigation, specifically into the now abandoned children's ward. This is where Stu actually grew up and where the next Ghostface killer's origins begin to take shape. First of all, if Stu Macher had a sister the entire time, why was she not involved with the first film, and why has she not been mentioned throughout the entirety of this franchise up until the fifth film? You're telling me Sydney Prescott didn't know Stu Macher's sister? That was somebody that was in her friend group. There's no way she wouldn't have known about her unless it was some sort of specific situation like this. I also like the idea that we're doing a little more of a deep dive into Stu Macher's personal life. He had always had problems since he was a very young kid, which led to him going crazy later on in life. I want to talk more about how Scream 7 could remind us of who the character of Stu Macher was a little later on though. Continuing here, the killer is a woman named Jessica, played by Anna Camp, though this is an alias. What's eventually revealed is that Jessica is Stu's biological sister. She was never adopted. She remained inside the hospital long after Stu was taken out. Again, this totally works for me if Jessica was someone who was just hanging out at the party during Scream 96. Why are we just now talking about her? So again, lots of great stuff here, and I love the idea of talking more about Stu's upbringing. Jessica isn't some obsessed fan of Ghostface. She's not paying tribute. She doesn't even want revenge for Stu's death. Her motive is colder, more personal. She wants to be in his shoes, to finish what he started. In her mind, Stu didn't complete the story. He was the goofy one, the sidekick, the clown. He was made a joke of it all. Jessica sees herself as the real deal, the true Ghostface, the one with purpose, control, and vision. Stepping into the mask isn't about theatrics for her, it's about identity. It's the closest she will ever get to the long-lost brother she never really knew. This is what I'm talking about when I say it's reminding us of who Stu Macher was in that previous film. There's a lot of Stu theories that I have talked about on this page that don't work for me because there's just simply no groundwork laid there with them. Many people want to see the character of Stu Macher become this mastermind who's been like plotting everything in the shadows, in the background, the entire franchise so far. He's been alive and also masterminding like literally every single Ghostface killing since the original. That is just so not the character of Stu Macher. He is the sidekick. He's a clown, he's a joke, and his motive is peer pressure. He's not just saying that as a joke. I feel like there is a little bit of truth in when he's telling Sydney about what the hell's been going on this entire time over the phone. Stu is a character that we love to watch, probably my favorite Ghostface because of how complicated he truly is, but he is no mastermind. He's not in charge by any means. He's following orders that Billy is giving him. If any killer from the original run of films could be some sort of mastermind, it's either Roman or Billy without a doubt. These are the characters who are the impetus of the Ghostface killings, not Stu Macher by a long shot. If Anna Camp is playing our killer in this new movie, and if she is Stu Macher's biological sister, this could serve as sort of a reminder of who that character is versus what the fans have made him out to be. That may not be horror commentary, but it's Scream franchise commentary, which seems to be where this franchise is heading in its next installment. Scream may no longer be about commentary on the horror genre, but rather commentary on what the fan base thinks of the franchise. Continuing here, Jessica is not acting alone. She is working with her alleged son, and they are both tied to Kyle, a patient she met while inside the psychiatric hospital. So a few things with that. If she is working with an alleged alleged son, an alleged daughter, whatever. This does feel very similar once again to Scream 6. I'm not crazy about the familial motives that we have done so many times in this franchise, but maybe they can find a way to do this one differently. We'll talk more about that later. Also, who is this Kyle guy, you might ask? Well, that's supposedly the mental patient that Gale Weathers runs over about halfway through the film. In case you were wondering why there's just a random Kyle thrown into this madness, that's why. Will he be chugging energy drinks and screaming at the top of his lungs at the skate park? Well, we'll just have to find out. Kyle is a decoy, a silent figure who wears no mask but says almost nothing throughout the film. His presence helps misdirect both the characters and the audience, but it's Jessica who is always pulling the strings. Again, this all comes from a rumor that Gale Weathers is going to be running over some sort of mental patient in the film. Kyle is also said to have no dialogue throughout the entire flick, and the actor that supposedly plays him kinda looks a little like Stu Macher. That's another rumor about the film. The whole question of is Stu Macher alive or dead is once again going to be brought up here, just like how it was in the previous entry. It's not just about Sydney anymore, but Jessica's obsession uses Sydney as a reflection of her own distorted purpose. She casts Sydney as her final girl, not out of admiration, but because that's how it was supposed to end for Stu. This is her way of rewriting that ending, of placing herself inside the very narrative that left her behind. If you're gonna write in a random biological sister character to one of the previous killers, this is an interesting and meta way to do it. This is a character that essentially feels left out of the original story, literally, figuratively, whatever way you want to spin it. Here's a character that was created to literally elongate the original film's story. How would that character feel if she was real? Wouldn't she feel left out? She's like, why wasn't I in the original film? Why was I just created now? There's a way that you could execute that would be very Scream, would be very meta, that could work. Closing out this theory and continuing here, one of the most interesting details in the leak involves a location, Pine Grove Theater, where a screening of the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre is taking place. Why that film? Because Texas Chainsaw Massacre is famously about a family of psychos, a group that operates together as one terrifying unit. The parallel is clear. Scream 7 is drawing a line between the Sawyer family and this new Ghostface band. Both are families that kill in the name of something larger. The final act builds towards an explosive confrontation, a fractured mother-daughter unit squaring off against a killer mother and her son. So putting a pin in the whole family thing, I think we just have to get over the fact that Scream is always going to do family-oriented motives. As long as Kevin Williamson is involved, that's going to be apparent in this franchise. I really do believe that imagination can stretch an infinite amount of space. You can do a million different new things with every single idea, no matter how much that horse has been beat. With that being said, I think it would be way easier if Scream just left the family thing in the past and just did something else. That's something I've talked a million times over, however. When it comes to Scream 7, there's no doubt in my mind that the motive will be family-oriented and will be some sort of connection to the past. There's no way you're bringing back Stu Macher, Roman Bridger, and David Arquette, and we're not going to do something along those lines. If we're going to do that, if we're stuck in family revenge zone, I think we have to make an effort to make it stand out and not make it the exact same thing as Scream 6, and not the exact same thing as Scream 2 either. A really good example of this, Scream 4. Scream 4 is technically a family motive, but Jill has a different reason to be going about what she's doing. Is she Sidney Prescott's cousin? Yes. But is her motive, oh, I just want to kill Sidney for some sort of revenge? No. Jill may be related to Sidney, but the big thing when it comes to talking about who Jill Roberts is as a character is she wanted fame. She wanted the fame that Sidney Prescott had so that she could be in the limelight and adored by millions of fans. So would this twist feel a little soap opera-y? Yeah, sure, but is there some kind of other motive that we put out front that makes it a little more interesting? Leslie Macher could be going after Sidney to finish what Stu started. This could also be meta commentary on how the fan base looks at Stu Macher as a character, this mastermind killer that's gonna come back from out of the shadows and say he was responsible for literally everything that has happened since the events that took place in 1996. Like I said earlier, that's just not who Stu Macher is. There's really no groundwork laid in that original film to do some sort of twist ending like that here in the new film. Could revealing the character of Stu Macher's sister as the Ghostface killer essentially restore order there with who Stu Macher is as a character? I think that could be kind of interesting and also meta commentary on what the fan base looks at Stu Macher as. I also think it's interesting that the Scream franchise may just start commenting on itself, because maybe there's no new general topic in horror to cover nowadays. I have pitched the idea a couple of times on this page that Scream 7 could start hitting on niche topics, but maybe not everyone can get into that. Maybe that's the fear there. There is a lot of things going on here in the space of horror in the modern day. So many little subgenres creeping up, becoming popular for a little bit, and then kind of disappearing again. If you're the writer of a Scream film, sure, you could hit on one of those small topics, but that may only relate to a small group of people. Could you, however, start commenting on the franchise itself, opposed to doing meta commentary on just one very small thing happening in horror? The horror genre is just in a different place than it was in the late 90s, where there would be like one big fad take over for a little while and then kind of die, and then something else would come up. For instance, the Scream-inspired slasher was a very big thing in the late 90s, early thousands. Then we move into like 2003, 2004, when Saw and Hostel are coming out, and these are the next big thing, like the gory, over-the-top torture movies. That's just not how horror is anymore. So many different weird little things are popular all at the same time now, it's hard to just pinpoint one thing or the other. Maybe it makes sense for Scream to evolve in a way that it's really only commenting on itself in its own unique little corner. Maybe that's the only way that it can evolve and grow. A lot of crazy thoughts and ideas here with the Scream franchise, but I want to hear what you guys think about this theory and also the future of this franchise. Can Scream hit on smaller niche topics, or will that not relate to everybody coming to see this film? Will that go over their heads? Is Scream in a box where it can only really comment on itself moving forward? Also, what do you think about Stu's sister becoming the killer in the new flick? Could that shed some sort of light on the character of Stu Macher, teach us something we didn't know about him, and also maybe restore order with who this character ultimately is? Let me know down in the comments below.
Spoiler alert, it never works out for the dipshit in the mask.
We've had some sporadic Scream 7 updates in the past few days, including some updates on former cast members, as well as some spicy rumors coming through. Let's talk about this flamin' hot Ghostface update. Now, Scream fans oftentimes ask me, what is Melissa Barrera up to now that she's not going to be starring in Scream 7? Well, today we have a really interesting answer. Melissa Barrera just signed on to the creature feature Black Tides, starring alongside John Travolta, that comes from Deep Blue Sea director Rennie Harlin. According to Deadline, the film follows Bill Pierce, Travolta, an estranged father trying to reconnect with his daughter Rebecca, Barrera, when their sailboat is attacked by rogue orcas off the southern Spanish coast, setting off a fight for survival across open waters. Coming from the guy that made the second best shark movie of all time, I think this could be the #1 orca film in that very, very limited subgenre. I can literally only think of one other orca movie, Orca, and honestly, it's kind of just a Jaws knockoff. Barrera will also star in the James Wan-produced science fiction series The Copenhagen Test, alongside Simu Liu and Sinclair Daniel. The plot description for that series reads, "In the near future, an intelligence agent is hacked and must prove his allegiance." The spy thriller series drops on Peacock on December 27th. So for those who are curious, your girl is booked and busy. Getting into the rumor mill now, we have some updates, take these with a grain of salt, regarding Scream 7, things that may or may not be happening. But they do kind of build off of some other things we already know about the film. Like this first one, for instance, that's really just kind of subjective. The movie has the most insane chase scenes the franchise has ever had. I mean, that would be awesome if it does, but I don't know if everyone's gonna agree with that. I don't know if that's really like a fact or a rumor. That's kind of just an opinion about someone who may have already seen the film. Also, like, are you really gonna top Scream 2 and I Know What You Did Last Summer? Like, come on now. I'm sure it's gonna have some cool chase scenes, but will it top CC Cooper being thrown off the 3rd floor of a sorority house? I don't know. Scream fans to this day still wonder, why was there a bicycle up there? Gale and Robbie's clash brings the perfect comedic relief. Again, subjective, but let's not focus on that part. Who the heck is Robbie, you might be asking? This is allegedly Mark Consuelos' character, who is supposedly playing some sort of counter to Gale, maybe like a male reporter, also on the scene reporting on Ghostface, and Gale might not like that a whole bunch. I think this is gonna be one of those like enemies to lovers kind of situations where they're kind of like pissed at each other at first, and then Gale all like, damn, okay, you know, Robbie kind of doing it for me. Whew. I'm thinking a lot about what Gale Weathers said about David Arquette and her relationship on screen with these movies, and how like their romance has to be put to the test in these flicks. That was something she said earlier in the year. So I'm kind of thinking like this could be like almost Dewey's replacement in a way, which I don't think anyone wants to hear, but Gale deserves to move on. Maybe this is how we get a flashback to David Arquette's character. We see like a scene from a long time ago when maybe Gale and Dewey were together, and maybe he says something along the lines of, well, you know, ghost faces just keep attacking us. If I do end up dying, I would want you to move on. Look at that scene as like an epilogue to their relationship. I think that could be kind of cute. It would literally only be put in the movie for fan service, but let's be honest, that's what this movie is going to be. Fan service, fan service, fan service. Anna Camp is a standout and already feels like a fan favorite. A fan favorite ghost face, perhaps? Again, fan service the movie. I think this is going to be a pretty predictable twist here. Anna Camp is likely going to be Stu's sister. This franchise can't help itself when it comes to family connections like that somehow stem back to the original. They're gonna do that for this movie. I'm like 99.9% sure that's probably what the twist is going to be. Will it be Anna Camp playing this role? I mean, absolutely, maybe. I could totally see McKenna Grace being a Ghostface killer in this one, or maybe our opening scene kill. I just feel like she's way too big of a star to not be some sort of big role in this movie. Based on what the casting director has said about how they find Ghostface actors, they literally look for somebody who can play both roles. Someone who seems like this innocent little face, but then is evil by the time we get to the end. I mean, McKenna Grace has literally been in 2 movies, which I did a whole video about this already, where she plays the exact same role. One is a wholesome family movie, the other, she's a cold-blooded killer. Same exact character too. She's a gifted young lady who's super intelligent. In one case, she's killing her classmates, and the other, she's trying to stay with Chris Evans because he's a lovely father, kind of, not really her father, but that's a complicated story. Watch Gifted, it's so wholesome. The twins are more mature, they have a meaningful arc with Gale. This might be a little bit of a hot take, but I'm not like crazy about all the stuff that they did with Mindy's character in the last 2 movies, and honestly, my absolute favorite thing when it comes to the twins is their juvenile banter. Their whole back and forth in both Screams 5 and Scream 6, the beheadings thing, the fuck you Mindy and all that back and forth in these movies. It's a nice little sibling dynamic I think they got going on. I would hate to see that just ripped away. I would like to see Mindy turn into an effective Randy character, however, where she is right about everything and no one listens to her. Like, that to me is what works so well about Randy in the original and even the second film, but maybe not so much about Mindy's character in 5 and 6, where she's just wrong and super confident. It's like the exact opposite thing that I want to see from a character like this. And just let Chad be Chad, dude. I want to see him get stabbed like 100 million times and be totally fine at the end, given the thumbs up again. And last but not least, Sydney finally gives Gale an interview, but why now? Maybe Gale is working on something that isn't exploitative, isn't going towards, you know, funding some sort of gigantic horror movie that's fictionalizing her real life trauma. This could maybe be why she gives an interview to Gale, and I also wanted to put this one at the end because this is how I think the twins are going to be utilized in Scream 7, working alongside Gale. She'll bring them from New York to Pine Grove, Indiana, because what other reason do these characters have to be coming all the way out here? How do you guys feel about all of these crazy updates? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. If Stu is alive, how will they bring him back then? Knight, what would, if they brought Stu, logistically, what would you want to see happen there?
I mean, I would just like to see, obviously, you want it to make sense. I would also love to have some type of, I don't want to say shock value to it, but something that if they were able to make me say, oh, okay, wow. Now, of course, we know the whole idea of what 3 was going to be. You know, they're going to twist that in some way. You know, the cult thing, I think, is one of the most logical aspects. You know, he's been in the shadows, pulling some strings, blah, 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 blah. I think the only thing that could really make sense is the fact that he came from a well-off upbringing, and some way, somehow, he was protected. The fact that he survived. Maybe they show that, I mean, like, he was literally, maybe he did die, you know, and was resuscitated. You know what I'm saying? And so, I mean, we've seen that. That's the thing that's so crazy about this, when people say, oh, there's no way, it's impossible. It's like, bro, we've seen these types of things happen so many times before. You know what I'm saying? Like, he literally might have died or been on death's door or whatever, and then resuscitated and then protected his identity changed or what have you, whatever it may be. I think that that's a very logical way that they could bring him back, and it would make sense to me. It would make sense. He was well off enough to have that type of protection, paying off officials and the police force and stuff like that, or whatever. To me, there's a couple different avenues they could go with that. It totally. Well, if I see it on the screen, I'm gonna be like, "Yep, okay, I get it. It makes sense." You know what I mean? So that's how I look at it.
I could get into it if they do a direct sequel to 1. If you wanted to make that happen so badly, and you have this direct sequel that's just like, oh yeah, Stu lived somehow, the ambulance got to him in time and they took him to prison or something. I could get into that, but the problem is there's just been so much, because these films they build on top of each other. There's just so much that would, where that wouldn't work, where it would clash in terms of like other things that have been set up throughout the other films. Like we have literally said multiple times now that like Stu is dead in certain sequels. And I just don't know. I don't know. Like it's literally an in-universe theory that Stu could be alive, and like people are speculating it, and others are making fun of it. So it's like it's hard for me to believe that Stu actually has been alive the whole time. That feels like you're taking away from what is supposed to be meta commentary in some of the other films. So I don't know. If they were to, the only way I could really get into it is if they did a direct sequel to the original and they said Stu's alive in prison. Maybe they do like a Hannibal Lecter thing. Like, I think that could be really fun, where they just keep visiting him and asking him for like, hey, like, who is the new Ghostface? How is this, how does this tie into what's going on now? And I really wouldn't be against a Scream 2018, just like, just like what they did with Halloween, essentially. Yeah. I think that actually could be a lot of fun, but we'll see what's up. I don't know how they're actually going to do it. He's back somehow in this movie. Is it flashbacks? Is he alive? I don't know, but I guess we'll find out in February, and maybe Craven will be the happiest little fella out there. So that would it would be a wonderful thing to see. I think I don't even care about I don't even care anymore about if it ruins the franchise or not. I kind of want to see it for him. So
yeah, this is bigger than the franchise.
Today, let's rank all 14 of the Ghostface killers. Let's talk a little bit about that. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's get into these rankings. Just for the record, let's talk a little bit about how this is gonna go down. Top spot, S tier, top of the line Ghostfaces. This goes in the Jill's Creamery, baby. These are the best of the best. The 10 out of 10, no notes Ghostfaces go all the way up there. Next up is Billy's Baby Oil. These are Ghostfaces who are oiled up almost to perfection, but just not quite. They're still very good though, and I like them. They're all wet and lubed up. Then there's Mid. Pretty self-explanatory. Could have been Stu is like, you could have been great, but you're just not. And then there's Detective Bailey. Also, I just feel like I don't have to explain this. Like, just not very good. Bottom of the barrel. Very easy to spot.
You fuck with my family, you die.
But anyways, let's get into this. We're starting off here with Amber Freeman. Love this character a ton. I think I'm going to put her in Billy's Baby Oil. I love Amber's reveal. It is a blow your mind crazy moment, literally and figuratively. What keeps her out of Jill's Creamery for me personally is on subsequent viewings of Scream 5. She is very antagonistic. Like, she's constantly like deflecting what's going on with, the murder mystery that is currently ongoing. It's something we've seen in the franchise before from a lot of the other Ghostfaces before they were revealed. So this is something I feel like we kind of have to lose, even though it does make sense, or at least we got to do it in a more subtle way. There are times where I feel like Amber goes a little overboard with that, but everything else about the character I love. I think she gives a super over the top and unhinged performance at the end too, which is like way up there. Fun fact too, so far she's the only Ghostface killer to win an Oscar. Another one I love is Billy Loomis and his sticky cherry fingers. Oh baby, do I want to be sucking on them fingers too, buddy. He goes all the way up to Jill's Creamery. Billy Loomis is awesome. Super unhinged performance. Our first big reveal, and even though you can kind of tell it's Billy, they really throw you off the scent at a certain point. Billy's iconic. I don't even think there's much more to say about him. Skeet Ulrich's best performance without a doubt. Love him. Maybe not so much in 5 and 6, but I love him here. Charlie Walker is up next. One of the most brutal Ghostfaces without a doubt, but I just, I hate to do this, but he's kind of mid. I feel like it's obviously him, but at the same time, he does get some brutal kills under the mask. So that's pretty cool. But his motive is essentially, I want to simp for Jill Roberts. And while I understand that, I can't put him higher than that for that motive. It's just not cool enough. Ethan is a Detective Bailey. He's Detective Bailey's son, and he doesn't really get up much more higher than that. He's got a cool kill, and I'll give him that. You know, Kirby smashing that TV on his head. That TV is 2 for 2, baby. Let me tell you. But Ethan, I don't have a whole lot of love for. I think he's pretty obvious to spot. I mean, even Mindy Meeks, who is wrong about everything, was able to spot this guy as Ghostface. Not a whole lot of love for Ethan. Greg in the fridge, he's a pile of meat. He goes behind Ethan and Detective Bailey. While I think this is my least favorite Ghostface because we literally only see him as a pile of meat in a fridge, I feel like that's kind of the point with this character, and that's fun to me. We can revel and have fun in what is the worst Ghostface, without a doubt. Another hot take, potentially, but Jason Carvey's going up to Billy's baby oil, but he's up there for the shock value from that opening scene alone. I feel like his motive is purposefully redundant and repetitive to say like, hey, this Ghostface is gonna be something different. The Ghostface doesn't really end up being anything super different in Scream 6, but it kind of gave you the sense that maybe it was going to with this opening sequence. I love the performance and pettiness from Tony Revolori in this opening scene. It is such a standout moment, maybe my favorite scene in all of Scream 6, if I'm being honest. It's some great stuff, great way to open up that movie. Easily one of my favorites for sure. Jill Roberts. Going up into the creamery. Of course, it's her creamery. Jill is just one of my favorite ghost faces. She is petty. She is cold and evil. She kills her mom moments before she is revealed. What ghost face does something crazy like that? I have so much respect for Jill. She's insane. It's a great twist. You don't expect it. You think she's going to be the new Sidney Prescott, so of course she's not going to be Ghostface, but she is. We all should have known when she ate that cheese stick incorrectly. I love Jill though. She's without a doubt an S-tier Ghostface, and I think honestly maybe my new favorite. Mickey Altieri, another one that I'm so sorry, Mr. Billy, but I gotta let's just move you over a little bit. Mickey just has the best motive out of all the ghost faces. Jill is all about the fame and just, you know, basically taking that element away from Sidney Prescott that she has, that again was present throughout the entire film. Who knew it was going to be about that? That was really cool to end the movie focused on that, a subtle thing throughout the whole flick. But Mickey is in a lot of ways the same. There's this theme of, you know, people blaming the movies for all the violence that's happening in real life, a real life talking point from the late 90s, and they work that into the story, especially with this character. Mickey doesn't get my top spot because he is overshadowed by our next Ghostface killer, but if he hadn't, I think he would easily be the undefeated #1 Ghostface of all time, because it is the most Scream motive you could possibly have to essentially get away with murder and blame it on the movies. That's exactly what the Ghostfaces should stand for. They're villains in the meta horror movie that is talking about horror movies. Of course your villains are going to be people who are ruining the fun for everybody else. I know a lot of people love Mrs. Loomis, Debbie Salt, whatever. I'm going to say could have been Stu. I just don't get the love for this character. The performance is campy and over the top and silly. I will give her that. That's a positive, and I can have fun with that. But in terms of the murder mystery, I think this is one of the very worst on the list, and that is saying something when we come to some of these other characters we're about to talk about. She kind of just pokes her head in to be all suspicious around Gale Weathers throughout the majority of this flick. It's just real obvious. Hot take, I guess, but I've just never been crazy about Debbie Salt. Quinn Bailey, they're kind of just repeating the whole Roman thing with this character. I'm gonna put her... do I put her above Ethan? She's definitely in Detective Bailey, that's for sure. I'm just not crazy about this killer. Saw that coming from a long shot. If you had seen Scream 3, you know, it's just like, of course she's the killer. I'm gonna put her above Ethan just because I think she has some funnier lines than Ethan.
Shut your whore fucking mouth!
The way that she's just like shitting on Sam throughout this entire third act is pretty funny to me. It's like, you've been holding that in living with this character this whole time, huh? Wow. Again, the motive, not very interesting. You killed our brother. It's like, yeah, of course that's the motive. You know, it's just, it's very predictable. It's something that Scream has already done. That's why she's got to be below Nancy Loomis too, even though that burns my soul. Richie Kirsch, again, great killer, but a little obvious. So I think I'm gonna put him in like the bottom of Billy's baby oil. I love the motive of we are trying to give Hollywood better ideas. Just like Mickey Altieri, I feel like Scream killers need to embody like people who ruin the fun of horror movies, and Richie Kirsch is that toxic fan that kills any sort of life or fun that we can have with weirder movies or franchise continuations like Scream 5 and 6. This to me is like a spitting example of what I want from a new Scream film, these kinds of killers. My only thing with Richie is I feel like he's a little easy to spot, and that's not necessarily even Richie's fault with the writing, it's just the fact that he's played by Jack Quaid. of course it's Jack Quaid. You know what I mean? Like, dude, Jack Quaid he can pull off the killer. He can pull off the sweet and innocent guy because of the way his face looks too. He can do both. He's a perfect option for a Ghostface killer in this franchise. It makes so much sense that he was cast in this role. And even though the performance is great there, I do think he is a little easy to spot. But again, is that the writer's fault? Is that his fault? No, it's just he's Jack Quaid. Of course it's him. Roman Bridger, and you're gonna hate me for this, is like the definition of the guy that should be at the top of mid. There are some great things about this character, and there are some awful things about this character, and there's no in between. It's kind of just the way I feel about Scream 3, which Roman is the perfect killer for Scream 3 for that reason. Peaks and valleys with Roman Bridger, in my opinion. I love the performance from Scott Foley. It is insane, the whole battle he has with Sidney Prescott at the end of this movie. It's very intense. Kind of shocking for the silly movie that preceded it, but man, it's some good stuff. It's very over the top. It really works for a Scream movie. It's a little more grounded than Mrs. Loomis from Scream 2, but it still packs a lot of energy, which is what you want from a third act from a Scream movie. I don't love his motive at all. Like, I don't like the idea that Sidney has a secret brother that's been manipulating it the whole time, pulling the strings from afar. That's ridiculous. And the fact that he's also a movie director too, like this guy had to jump through hoops to make this whole thing happen. I kind of wish he was something a little more simple. He was just the director of Stab that wanted to take the franchise down a different direction and literally kill people on screen. It could have been something as simple as that, not secret brother to Sidney Prescott. I don't know. That doesn't work for me. I like the idea of a Stab director, a Stab movie director, maybe a producer, somebody a part of that being the killer. That was a cool idea. And all the John Milton commentary in Scream 3 is phenomenal. I applaud that film for that reason. I think he also gets the most kills out of all the Ghostfaces too, which is really cool. He's technically, as of right now, the only Ghostface killer to do it single-handedly. That may change. You know, we might learn a little more about Angelina Tyler, and then we're gonna have to do this ranking all over again when Scream 7 comes out. Who knows? But as of right now, he is the only Ghostface to have done it solo, which is pretty cool. Again, another pro for this guy. Stu Macher is up next. Guys, he's still alive, so it's kind of hard for me to rank him. Stu's hilarious, man. I think in terms of performance, this is the best campy performance we have on the entire list. He's easily going to the creamery, of course. I think I value something like Mickey or Jill in this franchise a little more, because you still have some really fun moments with these characters, but their motive is phenomenal. Stu is a really interesting character, not to take away from him by any means, but he is ultimately just Billy Loomis's sidekick. He goes above Billy because I think the performance is just, I mean, it's so goofy. It's so much fun. You can't not love this guy when he's on screen doing his little shtick. It's amazing. But ultimately, why is he there? It's because of peer pressure. It's simple. It's fun. It's effective. It's great. He deserves the top spot without a doubt. But does he beat out these other two who are just something special in my opinion? I'm going to argue no. This is maybe a controversial take. I love these two so much, but Mickey and Jill, I just think they embody everything I want from Scream killers more than anybody else on this list. And then finally, Wayne Bailey. Detective Bailey. Where's he going? Come on now. Of course. I like him better than his two kids and, the Greg meat in the fridge. I will say that, though. I think the performance cracks me up from him, and that's kind of what I love about the guy. At a certain point, he's Ghostface, but we're having fun with how ridiculous the conversation is. He just gets campier and campier and campier as this movie goes along, and I feel like it's just paced better than Mrs. Loomis. I still think I like Mrs. Loomis's campy stuff. I think that's funnier to me than Detective Bailey. Shortcoming for Detective Bailey is the fact that he's so obvious, he's so easy to spot, and he just gives himself and basically the whole movie's twist away.
You die.
I can enjoy the campier sides of this character. I can have fun with it, even though it does kind of ruin the big twist of the movie by the time we get to the end. So this is how I would rank the Ghostface killers personally. Maybe some hot takes in here, I know. I'm curious how you guys would rank them though. Let me know down in the comments below.
I'm gonna burn it all down.
Mother!
We just got the very first Scream 7 trailer, poster, plot description, and a whole bunch more that we're gonna break down in today's video. This trailer is glorious. It has answered all of my questions, things that I've really wanted to know about this new flick, things I was concerned about. All of these things have evaporated from my body. Let's talk a little bit about why. We got an official plot synopsis for Scream 7 today. Let's read that and break it down. When a new Ghostface killer emerges in the quiet town where Sidney Prescott, Neve Campbell, has built a new life, her darkest fears are realized paralyzed as her daughter, Isabel May, becomes the next target. Determined to protect her family, Sydney must face the horrors of her past to put an end to the bloodshed once and for all. So it sounds like they're setting the stage for this movie to be the final chapter, so to say. Obviously there's gonna be more after this, but maybe this is the sunset of the Sydney Prescott story. She's been fighting demons from her past for a very long time now. Also, on top of that, she has a family, a daughter now. This typically sees the end of a character arc in most franchises. I could see this being the last Sydney movie, and that's perfectly okay in my opinion. Whether we like it or not, franchises are going to outlive some of our favorite characters. That's just how these things go. Look at the Conjuring franchise right now. Even though director Michael Chavez has said that, oh, the Conjuring last rites, that's the last one, there's not gonna be any more movies. There's currently a Conjuring prequel film in the works. Why? Because Conjuring 4 made a butt-ton of money. Scream 7 will be no different. This movie's gonna make a ton of money as long as people think that Stu is coming back. Getting into this trailer breakdown, let's talk a little bit about this opening scene. A couple stays at a murderous Airbnb at 261 Turner Lane. That's of course Stu's house that served as the third act setting of both the original Scream and Scream 2022. The place is all dressed up to celebrate the Stab movie franchise as well as the true crime events that inspired the in-universe movie series. I think that's going to be a major theme of this one, kind of commenting on how we celebrate true crime in the same way that we do horror movies, and these are things that should be very, very different and separate from each other. Unfortunately, they're not. Look at how Ryan Murphy has Hollywoodified all of these serial killers that really killed people in real life. It led to people dressing up as Jeffrey Dahmer when season 1 came out for Halloween. That's messed up. We shouldn't celebrate Jeffrey Dahmer in the same way that we celebrate someone like Michael Myers, who is fictional and has never really killed anybody. I think Scream 7 clearly has some of that meta commentary laced into it here based on what we're seeing in the trailer. Something else I noticed is that on the ground are body prints of Billy Loomis, Amber Freeman, and Richie Kirsch, but interestingly enough, we never see the living room floor where Stu died, so to say. More on Mr. Macher a little later on. The couple finds an animatronic Ghostface in one of the other rooms while the real Ghostface creeps up behind him. After what I think will be a big chase sequence, Michelle Randolph's character swings from the chandelier like she's freaking Sia, falls down as Ghostface rolls over and points the knife straight up. Listen, if you're gonna do knife kills, you gotta find creative ways to do them at this point. This is Scream 7, and clearly they're figuring that out. I'm embarrassed to admit this, but I had goosebumps all over my body at the end of that whole little sequence of the trailer. That was so cool, man. Throughout the trailer, we get a few other sequences at Stu's house. I think that Jimmy Tatro's character, who is the dude in this little relationship that we see at the beginning here, I think he dies in the attic because there's a few sequences where it looks like maybe we're in Sydney's house's attic, but you can see some Woodsboro stuff in the background. Michelle Randolph seemingly dies in the foyer. Jimmy Tatro makes it all the way up to the attic. It kind of goes back to that really funny Sydney line from the original Scream, where she's making fun of characters who run up the stairs instead of going out the front door. Ghostface then seemingly burns the place to the ground, once again putting some sort of emphasis on this location. There is some sort of connection to the past. We're back in Woodsboro for whatever reason. Obviously, it has something to do with Stu, because once we get our little reintroduction to Sydney Prescott, who is living a great new life, at least for now, in Pine Grove, Indiana, she gets a call from Ghostface saying that he or she has found where Sydney Prescott is living, in a town that looks just like the place where we grew up. It is also interesting to note that not only do we see that the killer is calling from Woodsboro, California, again, probably part of whoever they are's motive, and we also see Isabel May's character hanging out with some of her friends, McKenna Grace and Celeste O'Connor. In this sequence as well, we get a lot of rumors confirmed. Sydney Prescott is in fact running her own coffee shop, The Little Latte. We love to see a businesswoman thrive, baby. We also get to see our first shots of Mark Evans, played by Joel McHale, who seemingly dies later on in the trailer. I have never been so happy to see a character potentially die on screen. I'm gonna be so honest with you guys. A big criticism I have had about Scream 7 is I just do not care for this casting. I love Joel McHale, hilarious actor, great comedian, but he's known for his asshole characters that he loves to play. Just not the kind of character I would see ending up with Sydney Prescott. Hopefully this character dies like halfway through the movie and we don't have to get too much conversation between husband and wife here, chemistry that I just don't think is gonna work and maybe even fall flat. This Ghostface clearly wants to get revenge on Sydney Prescott for something that happened in the past. So with this being such a vengeful Ghostface, I think they're gonna score a really nasty kill on somebody very close to Sydney Prescott, like literally her partner. Nothing sends a message more than making somebody a freaking widow. Yikes. Another thing that I was worried about about regarding Scream 7 is that they would have Ghostface chasing around Sidney Prescott the entire time, and I just don't think that would work. I'm paraphrasing here, but Kevin Williamson, the director of this film, who's also the writer of the original and some of the sequels, recently came out and said there's no way we will kill Sidney Prescott. So this movie's gonna have a happy ending, we know that. But the big thing about this movie that they have to do in order to still be able to build tension is they can't just be chasing Sidney Prescott around the entire time. It has to be her beloved family members. They are very clearly doing that from some of the sequences we got in today's trailer. I am a very, very, very happy fan right now. Isabel May's character's getting chased around, Joel McHale's dead. I mean, all these things that I've been wanting so badly from this film, they're doing it. They understand the assignment, baby. Sidney Prescott seemingly has this like vault in her house, a panic room, if you will, and they're sneaking through the walls. This is crazy. I love this sequence. It's very reminiscent of that Scream 3 sequence where Jennifer Jolie is behind the mirrors or whatever. That's pretty cool. But my favorite little chase scene that we get teased here is Isabel May getting some help from Sidney, who's not there, just watching on the cameras of her coffee shop, essentially. They're separated for whatever reason, and Ghostface is coming after the daughter. Sidney is trying to give some advice to her. This is exactly what I wanted from chase sequences in Scream 7. You can't just do Sidney Prescott getting chased around by Ghostface anymore. That is simply not going to work, knowing that she's going to survive. There's no tension, there's no suspense there. But there is tension and suspense with her daughter getting chased around by Ghostface because she can still die. Just like how Mark Evans is probably already dead, baby. I can't say this enough. I've never been so happy to have a kill spoiled for me. Gil Weathers is also badass here, confirming that rumor that she would be the one to bring Chad and Mindy into the equation here from New York City. That's why they're in middle of nowhere, Indiana. We also get to see Chad and Mindy fighting Ghostface at one point too. Will they both survive? Well, we know that Chad will. He can take like 6,000 stabs to the chest and still be fine. Hopefully Ghostface doesn't get 6,001, however. Maybe Chad's not the one getting stabbed though. He's looking real sad here, like maybe his sister just died. So I've been glazing the hell out of this trailer, but I do have a few cons with this one. We get a little sequence here where Isabel May is saying to her mother, hey, I want to be a fighter just like you. And once again, I feel like we are getting that passing of the torch scenario, which we kind of just got in Scream 2022 with the character of Sam Carpenter. That feels just a little repetitive considering we just got that just a few years ago here. That's something that I just think was inevitable with introducing the character of Sidney's daughter. I mean, come on now. Also, and maybe the biggest takeaway from this entire trailer is right at the end here, you can clearly hear Matthew Lillard's voice repeating a line, well, kind of variation of a line, I should say, from the original Scream.
This is gonna be fun.
So here's my thing with this trailer. I know I'm gonna have a million comments down below saying Stu Macher's back, he's alive, it's very obvious from the trailer. Don't you think that's a little suspicious? Like, isn't it a little suspicious with how many nods there are towards Stu Macher in particular with this trailer? Ghostface specifically says where we grew up, so this is something tying back to the original. It has something to do with Stu, let's be honest. We're burning down Stu's house at the beginning of this whole thing. We don't see Stu's body on the ground in the living room like we do all the other killers that died in this place. That's very clearly a variation of one of Stu's most hilarious lines right at the end as well. The marketing for Scream 7 is going to point towards Stu the entire time because they know the fan base is going to think he's back. I am 100% sure, not 98%, not 99% sure, I'm 100% sure the killer in this movie is going to be Stu Macher's sister. We were talking earlier about how there's this theme of true crime being glorified in the media, being treated the same way as a slasher movie. Stu Macher's sister, Leslie Macher, her motive here is she's not happy with the way her brother was portrayed in the movies. She's also not happy that Sidney Prescott, the person that killed him, is still alive, happy, and has a family, when maybe she doesn't, or has a broken family. The events from '96 have ruined her life, and also the glorification of this true crime story. Nobody cares about Stu's sister, everybody cares about the survivor, the victim, Sidney Prescott, and she is upset about that. She never got that attention from the media. She's a character that was only ever created in Scream 5. It's meta, it's relevant to something going on in the entertainment industry right now, it's very Scream. And also it's a family member that we didn't know about until very recently, which is very Scream as well. I don't care for that angle, but I think if they focus more heavily on the fact that, hey, this is a movie that is much more about the glorification of true crime and how that's wrong, that can be a really nice talking point that Scream 7 can dive into, something that the very best Scream movies do. The original Scream movie, for instance, was put on the map because of the meta-horror commentary on the dying state of slashers. Scream 4 was all about internet fame and how easy it was to obtain in really awful ways too. Scream 5 had some requel commentary and also some commentary on toxic fandom. This movie is moving into some more relevant topics of the time as well. I think Scream 7's gonna rock if it takes it down that angle. I may not love the whole family thing. I've been very vocal about that in the past. I don't think this needs to be Stu's sister, but if that's the route you're gonna take it, it's gonna be some family member we just created out of thin air. This is a really nice way to do it. I'm loving the darker tone of this one. It looks very bloody despite what Neve Campbell has said about the flick. And overall, I'm just a very happy fan right now. I'll eat my vegetables with the whole family thing and the, kind of doing the passing of the torch story again if it means we get some fresh ideas implemented into a new Scream sequel. And also an actual murder mystery, which if Stu is alive, that's not a murder mystery. We already know that Stu is a killer going all the way back to the original flick. I have a lot of faith in this movie, and I don't think they're gonna do franchise ruining things here. We will of course be covering Scream 7 up until its release on February 27th of next year. Stick around. Thank you guys for watching. Please subscribe, and as always, don't forget to kill it out there, y'all.